I never thought I'd be the kind of person to skip my own anniversary. 5 years of marriage, 8 years together total, and I just didn't show up. But before you judge me, let me explain how I got there, because the story doesn't end with me being a jerk. It ends with me discovering that my entire marriage was a carefully constructed lie, and that panic call my wife made when I didn't show up, that's when everything unraveled. It started about 2 months before our anniversary. My wife, Caroline, started acting different, not in the obvious way like coming home with lipstick on her collar or suddenly working late every night. It was subtler than that. She became distant, distracted, like I was a piece of furniture she'd gotten so used to that she didn't really see me anymore. At first, I thought it was work stress. Caroline works in marketing for a tech startup, and she'd mentioned they were working on some big campaign. I'm a high school teacher, so my hours are pretty regular, and I've always been the more present one in our relationship. I do most of the cooking, I handle the house stuff, and I'd always been okay with that dynamic because when we were together, really together, it was magic. That magic started disappearing. I'd cook dinner and she'd eat while scrolling through her phone, barely tasting the food I'd spent an hour preparing. I'd try to tell her about my day and she'd give me one-word responses without looking up. At night, she'd roll over and go to sleep without even saying goodnight. On weekends, she was always busy with something, always had somewhere to be, always had someone to meet. I tried everything. I suggested date nights. She said she was too tired. I planned a weekend getaway. She said she had too much work. I asked if something was wrong. She said everything was fine and that I was being clingy. That word stung, clingy, for wanting to spend time with my own wife. So I backed off. I gave her space. I stopped asking about her day, stopped suggesting activities, stopped trying to initiate intimacy. And you know what? She didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. The distance between us grew from a crack to a canyon, and I was the only one who seemed to see it happening. 3 weeks before our anniversary, I decided to test something. I wanted to see how long it would take her to initiate a real conversation with me if I stopped trying. So I did. I stopped being the one to reach out, stopped asking questions, stopped trying to connect. I still did my part around the house, still was civil and polite, but I stopped putting in the emotional labor. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, nothing. By day 7, we'd had exactly 0 meaningful interactions. We were roommates, not spouses. By day 14, I realized she hadn't even noticed the change. By day 21, our anniversary was 3 days away, and I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to show up. We had reservations at Maison Laurent, this expensive French restaurant where I'd proposed to her 8 years ago. I'd made the reservation 3 months in advance because the place books up fast. It was supposed to be special, a chance to reconnect, to remember why we fell in love in the first place. But as the day approached and Caroline continued to barely acknowledge my existence, something in me just broke. Why should I sit across from her at a romantic restaurant, trying to make conversation with someone who couldn't be bothered to see me? Why should I celebrate a marriage that felt like it only existed on paper? Morning of our anniversary, Caroline was up and out early as usual. No happy anniversary, no kiss goodbye, nothing. She was gone before I even got out of the shower. I went to work, taught my classes, graded some papers. A few of my colleagues wished me a happy anniversary because I'd mentioned it weeks ago when I was still optimistic. I smiled and thanked them, not having the energy to explain that my marriage was falling apart. After school, I went to the gym. Then I went to a movie by myself. Then I grabbed a burger at this dive bar near our apartment. I turned my phone off. I just checked out, and honestly, it felt good. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't anxious about Caroline's mood, wasn't walking on eggshells, wasn't trying to figure out what I'd done wrong. I was just existing, and it was a relief. I got home around 10 p.m. I turned my phone back on during my drive home, and that's when it all hit at once. 37 missed calls, 53 text messages, 12 voicemails, all from Caroline. My heart rate spiked. Something must be wrong. Maybe there was an emergency, maybe someone died, maybe she was hurt. I pulled into our parking spot and was scrolling through the messages when my phone rang again. Caroline. I answered, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "Where the fuck have you been?" Her voice was shrill, panicked, angry. "I've been calling you for hours, HOURS. I was out, my phone was off. What happened? What's the emergency?" The emergency. You missed our anniversary dinner. I sat at that restaurant alone for an hour like an idiot. The staff kept giving me pitying looks. I thought you'd been in an accident. I called hospitals. I sat in my car processing this. She was upset that I'd missed dinner. Not worried about me, not really. Worried about being embarrassed. About looking like the woman whose husband stood her up. "I'm fine," I said calmly. "No accident. I just didn't feel like going." Silence. Then what? "I didn't feel like going to dinner, so I didn't go." Are you fucking serious right now? It's our anniversary." "Is it?" I let the question hang there, because I wasn't sure you remembered we were married at all. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm tired, Caroline. I'm coming up now." I hung up before she could respond and made my way to our apartment. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from something else. Anger, maybe, or relief that we were finally going to have it out. She was waiting by the door when I walked in, still in her dress, makeup smeared from crying, face red with rage. You want to explain what the hell is going on? I set my keys down, took off my jacket. When's the last time you asked me about my day? What? Simple question. When's the last time you asked me how my day was? She stared at me like I was speaking another language. I don't know, I ask you all the time. Try again, because I've been keeping track, and it's been 43 days since you've asked me anything about my life. That's ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. When's my birthday, Caroline? June 12th. What does that have to? What's my favorite food? This is stupid. What am I allergic to? What's my mother's maiden name? What's the name of my best friend from college? What subject do I teach? I know all of this. Then answer. She opened and closed her mouth. You're being insane. You stood me up on our anniversary because you're having some kind of breakdown. I stood you up because you've been standing me up for 2 months. My voice rose despite myself. You don't talk to me. You don't look at me. You don't see me. I could have disappeared 43 days ago, and I don't think you would have noticed until you needed someone to take out the trash. That's not fair. Isn't it? Tell me, Caroline, what did we talk about last? What was the last real conversation we had? She was crying now, but they felt like frustrated tears, not sad ones. I've been busy with work, you know that. We're launching a major campaign. It's always something. Work, friends, errands, anything but me, anything but us. So your solution is to humiliate me, to make me sit alone at a restaurant on our anniversary. My solution was to stop begging for scraps of attention from my own wife. I was shouting now. Do you know how pathetic that feels? To have to compete for 30 seconds of eye contact, to feel grateful when you remember to say goodnight. She wrapped her arms around herself. If you were so unhappy, why didn't you say something? I did multiple times. You said I was being clingy. You said you were just busy. You said everything was fine. Well, maybe if you were more understanding. Understanding, Caroline, I've been nothing but understanding. I've given you space. I've taken care of everything at home. I've supported your career even when it meant I came last. And you know what? I'm done. I'm done being invisible in my own marriage. She went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know if I want to do this anymore. The words hung in the air between us, and I could see the moment they actually penetrated. Her face went pale. You want a divorce. I want a wife who actually wants to be married to me. I want a partner, not a roommate who resents my existence. I want to feel like I matter. You do matter, of course you matter. Then show me, because right now, I feel like I'm just a convenience, someone to keep the house running while you live your life. She sank onto the couch, head in her hands. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then she looked up at me, and something in her expression had changed. The anger was gone, replaced by something else. Fear, maybe, or calculation. You're right, she said quietly. I've been distant. I've been a bad wife. I'm sorry. I waited because it felt like there was more. Work has been insane, but that's not an excuse. I've been taking you for granted. She patted the couch next to her. Come sit, please. Let's talk about this. I sat, keeping some distance between us. She noticed. I don't want to lose you, she said, and her voice cracked. I love you. I know I haven't been showing it, but I do. These last few months, I've just been so in my head about everything, and I let us drift, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was what I'd wanted to hear for weeks, so why did it feel hollow? What's been going on, Caroline, really? She twisted her hands together. The campaign at work, it's just been consuming me, and I guess I've been having some anxiety about us. About turning 30 next year, about where my career is going, about whether I'm living the life I'm supposed to be living, and instead of talking to you about it, I shut down. I pushed you away. You could have told me you were struggling. I know I was embarrassed, I guess. You always have everything so together, and I felt like a mess, and I didn't want you to see that. I studied her face, looking for the woman I'd married. She was in there somewhere, under the makeup and the designer dress and the careful words, but I couldn't quite reach her. I need time, I said finally, to think about what I want. Her hand shot out and grabbed mine. Please don't say that. We can fix this. I'll do better, I promise. I'll cut back on work. We can do counseling, whatever you need. I need space, Caroline. How much space? I don't know, a few days at least. I'm going to stay at my brother's place. No, don't go, please. She was fully crying now, clinging to my hand. Stay, sleep in the guest room if you want, but don't leave. Once you leave, it's the beginning of the end, and I can't lose you. Something about her desperation made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't name, like she was more afraid of the idea of divorce than actually losing me specifically. Fine, I said, too tired to argue. I'll take the guest room, but Caroline, I mean it. I need time to figure out if this is fixable. She nodded frantically. Yes, okay, whatever you need. Thank you, thank you. I extracted my hand from hers and went to the guest room, closing the door behind me. I could hear her crying in the living room, but I didn't go back out. I was drained, emotionally exhausted, and honestly, still angry. One apology didn't make up for 2 months of being ignored. I thought that would be the turning point, the moment we either started to fix things or officially ended them. I had no idea that the real story was about to begin, and that everything I thought I knew about my marriage was a lie. The next morning, Caroline was up early making breakfast. This was unusual because she never made breakfast. I found her in the kitchen, scrambling eggs, bacon in the pan, toast popping up. She gave me a tentative smile. Morning, I made your favorite. I sat at the counter, feeling awkward. Thanks. I called in sick to work. I thought maybe we could spend the day together, talk, reconnect. Part of me was suspicious of the sudden 180, but another part was cautiously hopeful. Maybe the shock of me standing up for myself had actually gotten through to her. We spent the day together and it was nice. We talked more than we had in months. She asked about my students, about the book I was reading, about my parents. We watched a movie together on the couch. She held my hand. It felt like old times, like the Caroline I'd married. That evening, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the coffee table. I wasn't trying to snoop, but it was right there, and the preview lit up the screen. Did you take care of it? We can't afford any more slip-ups. The message was from someone named James. I didn't recognize the name. The message preview disappeared, and I sat there, staring at her phone, my good mood evaporating. It could be innocent, a work thing, but something about the phrasing made my stomach turn. Can't afford any more slip-ups. Slip-ups with what? I heard the shower turn off and quickly looked away from her phone, my heart pounding. Caroline emerged a few minutes later in pajamas, smiling. Want to order dinner? I'm thinking Thai. Sure, I said, trying to keep my voice normal. She picked up her phone and I watched her face carefully. She glanced at the screen, and there it was, a tiny flinch, a flash of something in her eyes before she smiled at me again. Spring rolls. Yeah, sounds good. She ordered dinner and we ate it on the couch while watching some cooking show, but I was barely paying attention. My mind was spinning. Who was James? What did he mean by slip-ups? Why did Caroline look guilty when she saw his message? Over the next few days, Caroline kept up the attentive wife act. She came home at reasonable hours. She cooked dinner with me. She asked about my day. She initiated conversations and intimacy. It should have made me happy. It's what I'd wanted. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It felt performative, like she was checking boxes on a how to save your marriage list, and that text message kept nagging at me. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I did it anyway. One evening when Caroline was in the bath, I picked up her phone. I knew her passcode. We'd always had an open phone policy, or so I thought, but when I tried to unlock it, the code didn't work. She'd changed it. That sent a chill down my spine. In 8 years together, she'd never changed her passcode without telling me. We'd always had access to each other's phones, not because we were checking up on each other, but because we had nothing to hide. Why change it now, unless she had something to hide? I put the phone back, hands shaking. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe she'd changed it for security reasons. Maybe I was looking for problems because I was still hurt and angry. But I couldn't let it go. The next day at school, during my planning period, I did something I never thought I'd do. I created a fake Instagram account and searched for Caroline's profile. It was public, which surprised me because she usually kept it private. I scrolled through her recent posts. Lots of pictures from work events, pictures of food, artsy shots of the city, normal stuff. Then I noticed she'd been tagged in some photos by someone named James Hendricks. I clicked on his profile. James was handsome in that annoying way where you can't find anything specific to criticize. Fit, good hair, perfect teeth in every photo. His bio said he was a creative director, and looking through his photos, I saw Caroline in several of them. Group shots from work mostly, but in a few it was just the two of them, his hand on her shoulder, her laughing at something he said, one of them at a bar together, heads close. My mouth went dry. I checked the dates. These photos went back months, to right around when Caroline had started getting distant. I told myself it didn't mean anything. They worked together. It was natural they'd have photos together. But that text message, did you take care of it? We can't afford any more slip-ups. During lunch, I did more digging. I looked up James Hendricks on LinkedIn. Sure enough, he worked at the same company as Caroline. He joined about 4 months ago as creative director, right when Caroline started pulling away from me. I felt sick. I wanted to be wrong. I desperately wanted to be wrong. but the pieces were falling into place in a way that I couldn't ignore. That evening, Caroline was working late again, the first time in a week. She texted me around 6 saying something came up and she'd be home by 10. I sat in our apartment, staring at my phone, debating with myself. Finally, I broke. I called her office line. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. "You've reached Caroline Mitchell. I'm either away from my desk or on another call. Please leave a message." I hung up and called again. Same thing. I tried her cell. It rang 3 times before she answered. "Hey, what's up? I'm kind of in the middle of something." "Just wanted to hear your voice," I lied. "Oh, that's sweet. I really have to go though. We're on a tight deadline. I'll be home as soon as I can, okay?" "Okay, love you." A pause, "Love you too." She hung up. I sat there thinking. Then I did something crazy. I got in my car and drove to her office. The parking garage was mostly empty at 7 p.m. I found Caroline's car, a white Lexus I'd helped her pick out 2 years ago. It was in her assigned spot, so she was at the office. I parked across the lot where I could see her car but wouldn't be immediately visible. I waited. I felt like a crazy person. I was surveilling my own wife, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. At 8:47 p.m., the elevator doors opened and Caroline walked out. She wasn't alone. James was with her. They were laughing about something, and he had his hand on the small of her back as they walked to her car. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I slouched down in my seat, watching. They reached her car. She unlocked it, but instead of getting in, she turned to face him. They talked for a moment. I was too far away to hear, and then he leaned in and kissed her cheek. Just the cheek, but it lingered too long, too familiar. She smiled at him, said something, and then got in her car. He walked to a black BMW a few spots over. They both pulled out and drove toward the exit. I followed at a distance, feeling like I was in a bad movie. Caroline's car headed toward our apartment. James's went the opposite direction, so they were going their separate ways. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe they really had been working late. Maybe the kiss on the cheek was just a friendly colleague thing. But I couldn't unsee Caroline's smile. I knew her smiles, and that one was radiant in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. I drove home slowly, getting there after Caroline. When I walked in, she was changing out of her work clothes. "Hey, how was your night?" she called from the bedroom. "Fine, quiet. How was work?" "Exhausting, but we got a lot done. I'm starving though." I ordered pizza and we ate while watching TV. She cuddled up next to me on the couch, completely relaxed. Either she had no idea I'd seen her with James, or she was a much better actress than I'd given her credit for. "I'm really glad we're working through this," she said, kissing my shoulder. "I know I messed up, but I'm going to do better, I promise." "Yeah," I said, my voice hollow. "Me too." That night I barely slept. I kept replaying what I'd seen, trying to make it innocent and failing. The hand on her back, the lingering kiss, her radiant smile, the changed passcode, the suspicious text, the timeline of her distance coinciding with James joining her company. By morning, I'd made a decision. I needed proof, one way or another. If I was wrong, I'd apologize and work on my paranoia. If I was right, I didn't let myself think about that yet. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did. After Caroline left for the office, I sat down at my laptop and did something that made me feel disgusted with myself. I logged into our phone account. The family plan was in my name, and pulled up Caroline's text message records. I couldn't see the content of the messages, but I could see the numbers she was texting and the frequency. There was one number she texted constantly, multiple times a day, every day, starting about 4 months ago, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes dozens of messages in an hour. I cross-referenced it with her contacts list, which was backed up to our shared cloud. The number belonged to James Hendricks. My hands were shaking. I stared at the records, hundreds of texts, at all hours. While she was barely speaking to me, she was having marathon text conversations with him. I needed more. I hated myself for it, but I needed more. I went into our bedroom and started looking through her things. I felt like a criminal, violating her privacy like this, but I was too far gone to stop. In her nightstand drawer, under some old magazines, I found a burner phone, a cheap flip phone that I'd never seen before. My blood ran cold. Why would Caroline have a secret phone? I opened it. There were texts between her and a number saved as J. I started reading, and my world fell apart. The messages went back 3 months. They started innocent enough, work stuff, inside jokes. Then they got flirtier. "You looked amazing today. Can't stop thinking about you. This is probably a bad idea, but I don't care." Then about 6 weeks ago, the messages turned explicit. I won't repeat what I read, but it was clear they'd slept together. Multiple times. Recently. Including 2 nights ago when she'd said she was at a work dinner with clients. I read every message, torturing myself with the details. They'd had sex in his car, in a hotel, once in a conference room at the office after hours. They talked about how exciting the secrecy was, how she'd never felt this alive, how she knew it was wrong but couldn't stop. And then, dated 3 days ago, right after our fight about the anniversary. Caroline, he knows something is wrong. He's pulling away. Jay, so what? I thought you were going to tell him anyway. Caroline, I was, but now I'm not sure. If we divorce, I lose the apartment, probably have to pay him alimony since he makes less. My parents will freak. It's complicated. Jay, so you're just going to stay with him? Caroline, I don't know. I need time to figure out the finances. Can you just be patient? Jay, this is bullshit, Caroline. I'm not going to be your dirty secret forever. Caroline, I know, baby, I know. Just give me a few weeks to sort everything out. I promise I want to be with you. Jay, did you take care of it? We can't afford any more slip-ups. Caroline, yes, I turned on the charm. He's buying it. He actually feels bad for overreacting about the anniversary. It's almost too easy. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. I made it to the bathroom just in time to throw up. She was playing me. The whole loving wife act of the past week was a performance to buy time while she figured out how to leave me without losing money. She was talking to her affair partner about manipulating me. Almost too easy. I don't know how long I sat on that bathroom floor. Long enough that my legs went numb. Long enough that the shock started to give way to a cold, crystalline anger. I'd been ready to work on our marriage. I'd been blaming myself for being too needy, too demanding. I'd actually felt guilty for skipping our anniversary. And the whole time, she'd been cheating on me and strategizing about how to manage me while she planned her exit. I picked myself up, washed my face, and started thinking clearly for the first time in weeks. Caroline wanted to play games. Fine, I could play games too, but I was going to make sure I won. First, I took pictures of everything. Every message on the burner phone, every text log from our phone records, every photo of her and James on social media. I documented everything with timestamps and saved it all to a cloud account she didn't have access to. Then I called a lawyer. I found a divorce attorney who had excellent reviews and booked an emergency consultation for that afternoon. I brought all my evidence. The lawyer, a sharp woman in her 50s named Patricia, looked through everything with a poker face. When she finished, she looked up at me. This is pretty cut and dry. Infidelity, evidence of intent to defraud you in a divorce proceeding. In this state, we're no fault for the divorce itself, but this can absolutely affect the division of assets and alimony. The apartment is in both your names. Yes, we bought it together 3 years ago. And you're both on the mortgage. Yes. Any kids? No. That simplifies things. Now, she mentioned in these texts that she'd likely owe you alimony because you make less. Is that true? I make about $60,000 as a teacher. She makes about $120,000 in tech. Patricia nodded. Given the length of the marriage and the income disparity, you'd have a strong case for spousal support, especially with evidence that she's been planning to divorce you while maintaining the financial status quo to her advantage. What should I do? Well, that depends on what you want. Do you want to try to save the marriage? I laughed, a bitter sound. After reading those messages, no, I want out. And my advice is this: don't let on that you know. Not yet. Continue to document everything. Every late night, every suspicious text, every interaction with this James person. Build an airtight case. In the meantime, I'll draw up divorce papers. We'll file citing irreconcilable differences, but we'll use all of this evidence to negotiate a favorable settlement. She's going to lose it when she gets served. Probably, which is why you should have a plan for where you're going to stay. Do you have somewhere safe to go? My brother's place. Good, we'll time the serving for when you're already out of the house. Also, I'd recommend securing your finances. Any joint accounts, you'll want to withdraw half and put it somewhere she can't access. Legally, you're entitled to half of all marital assets. I left Patricia's office with a plan and a purpose. For the first time in months, I felt like I had some control over my life. Over the next 2 weeks, I played the role of the reconciling husband while gathering evidence. Caroline continued her attentive wife routine, clearly convinced she'd successfully pulled the wool over my eyes. She'd occasionally work late, and I'd follow her, documenting her meeting up with James. Hotel visits, dinner dates, one memorable afternoon when they met at his apartment, and I sat outside for 3 hours waiting for her to leave. Every betrayal, every lie, every moment I documented made it easier to kill whatever love I'd had left for her. This wasn't the woman I'd married, or maybe it was, and I'd just never seen this side of her. I also did exactly what Patricia suggested with our finances. We had a joint savings account with about $40,000. I withdrew $20,000 and opened an account at a different bank in just my name. I documented the withdrawal, making sure everything was above board legally. I contacted my brother, Mark, and asked if I could stay with him for a while. I didn't tell him why, just that Caroline and I were having problems. He said yes immediately, even offered to help me move my stuff. I packed slowly, taking a little at a time. Important documents, sentimental items, clothes, books. I moved it all to Mark's place bit by bit, telling Caroline I was donating stuff to make space. She barely noticed. And I kept reading that burner phone. Caroline was careful to delete messages from her main phone, but she kept the burner and clearly didn't think I'd ever find it. The messages between her and James got more detailed about their plans. They were talking about moving in together once she dealt with the husband situation. James was getting impatient, pressuring her to file for divorce. She kept stalling, saying she needed to time it right. One message made me laugh darkly. "Jay, just tell him you're unhappy and want out. Why are you making this so complicated?" "Caroline, because I'm not stupid. If I leave him for you, he'll be vindictive. I need him to think this is mutual, or better yet, his idea. Then he won't fight me on the settlement." "Jay, you're giving him too much credit. You said he's been moping around for weeks. He'll probably be relieved." "Caroline, maybe. I just need a little more time to set things up. I'm thinking I'll start another fight, let him be the one to say he wants out. Then I'm the victim and he's the bad guy who gave up on our marriage." It was fascinating, in a horrifying way, to see how her mind worked. She really thought she was going to manipulate me into asking for a divorce so she could play the victim. The level of calculation was breathtaking. Finally, everything was in place. My important belongings were at Mark's. The divorce papers were ready. My finances were secured. I'd documented everything Patricia said I'd need. It was time. I chose a Friday. Caroline had mentioned she had a work event that evening, which I knew from checking the burner phone was actually a date with James at some upscale restaurant. Perfect. That morning I woke up early and made breakfast. Caroline came into the kitchen, surprised. "What's all this?" "Just wanted to do something nice," I said, smiling. "Pancakes, your favorite." She looked touched. "That's so sweet, thank you." We ate breakfast together, and she chattered about her day, completely oblivious to what was coming. I played along, asking questions, laughing at her jokes. Academy Award-worthy performance on my part. Before she left for work, she kissed me. "I love you. I'll probably be late tonight. There's this work thing, but don't wait up." "I love you too," I said. The lie tasted like ash, but I smiled through it. "Have fun." She left. I watched from the window as her car pulled away, and then I got to work. I'd arranged for a process server to deliver the divorce papers to her office at noon. I wanted her to get them in front of her colleagues, in front of James. I wanted her to feel a fraction of the humiliation I'd felt reading those messages. At the same time, I'd scheduled movers to come and take the last of my things. By the time Caroline got home, I'd be gone, and the apartment would be half empty. But I wasn't quite done. I had one more move to make, and it was petty and vindictive, and I didn't care. I logged into Caroline's Instagram account. I still knew her password because she'd never changed it, relying on the burner phone for her secret communications with James. I scrolled through her messages and found a group chat she had with her friends, about 8 women who she'd known since college. These were the friends she'd been spending so much time with lately, or at least that's what she'd told me. Looking through the messages, I could see she'd been lying to them too, canceling plans and making excuses so she could be with James. I started a new message in the group chat and attached screenshots. Screenshots of the burner phone messages, screenshots of her and James's texts about their affair, screenshots of her talking about manipulating me. I typed, "Hey girls, it's Caroline's husband. I just wanted you all to know why you'll probably be hearing about our divorce soon." I found Caroline's burner phone and discovered she's been having an affair with her coworker James for months. These screenshots show some of their conversations, including the ones where she talks about stringing me along while she figures out how to leave me without losing money. I thought you should know what kind of person your friend really is. I also thought you should know that all those times she canceled on you, she was with him. She's been lying to everyone. Anyway, she's being served divorce papers today. Have a great Friday. I hit send and immediately logged out. My hands were shaking. It was cruel, but so was what she'd done to me. And I wanted her to know what it felt like to have your life exposed, to have people you care about see the worst parts of you. At 11:45, I left the apartment for the last time. The movers were scheduled to arrive at noon, right when Caroline would be getting served. I drove to Mark's place and waited. My phone started ringing at 12:07. Caroline, I didn't answer. She called again, and again. I turned my phone off. At Mark's, I tried to distract myself with TV, but I couldn't focus. Mark could tell something was up, but he gave me space, just brought me a beer and sat with me. At around 3 p.m., I turned my phone back on. 68 missed calls from Caroline, 43 text messages. The text devolved from "call me right now" to "what the fuck did you do" to "you fucking bastard" to "please, we need to talk." There were also messages from numbers I didn't recognize, probably her friends from the group chat, and 3 voicemails from James, which was interesting. How did he get my number? I listened to the first voicemail from Caroline. She was crying, her voice barely intelligible. "Please pick up, please, we need to talk about this. You don't understand. It's not what you think, please." The second one was angry. "You had no right to go through my private messages. No right, you violated my privacy. And sending that to my friends, that's fucking psychotic. Call me back right now." The third was desperate again. "I'm sorry, okay. I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. Please can we just talk? I love you. I don't want to lose you, please." I deleted them all without listening to the rest. The voicemails from James were something else entirely. The first one: "Hey man, this is James. Look, I know you're pissed, but you need to know the truth about what's been going on. Caroline told me you two were basically over, that you were just waiting to make it official. I never would have pursued anything if I'd known she was lying. We need to talk." That almost made me laugh. Of course, Caroline had told him we were basically separated, and he'd believed it because he wanted to. I didn't call anyone back. I'd said everything I needed to say through my actions. Instead, I texted Patricia, my lawyer, to let her know everything was in motion. She replied, "Good, expect things to get messy over the next few days. Do not, under any circumstances, communicate directly with your wife. All communication goes through me now, and document any harassment." The weekend was surreal. Caroline tried everything to reach me. She showed up at my school on Monday, but I'd already warned the administration that I was going through a difficult divorce and my wife might try to show up. Security turned her away. She tried to get to me through my family. She called my parents, crying, telling them I'd misunderstood, that she could explain. My mom called me, concerned, and I gave her the brief version. There was a long silence, then my mom said, "Oh honey, I'm so sorry. Do what you need to do. We support you." She tried to get to me through Mark, showing up at his apartment building and buzzing repeatedly until he threatened to call the police. She even tried to weaponize our finances, attempting to drain our joint checking account, only to find I'd already moved my half. She canceled credit cards, changed passwords on streaming accounts, petty stuff that just made her look worse. Through it all, I stayed silent. I didn't engage, didn't respond, didn't take the bait. Everything went through Patricia. 2 weeks after I'd left, Patricia called me. We got a response from her lawyer. She's trying to claim emotional abandonment, says you're the one who left the marriage first by being distant and cold. She's also claiming you stole marital assets and violated her privacy. Do any of those claims have merit? Not really, not with the evidence we have. The burner phone messages clearly show premeditated infidelity and intent to manipulate you. The text to her friends could be seen as vindictive, but it's not illegal, and you took exactly half of the joint savings, which you're entitled to. Her lawyer is grasping at straws. What do we do? We've proposed a settlement. You get half the value of the apartment. She can buy you out or you'll force a sale. You get spousal support for 2 years given the income disparity and her infidelity. You each keep your own retirement accounts and personal assets. It's fair and honestly generous on your part. If she pushes back, we go to court, and with this evidence, she'll come out much worse. And if she agrees? Then it's over. You sign the papers, the marriage is dissolved, and you both move on. Send it. 3 days later, Caroline signed the settlement. Just like that, 8 years together ended with signatures on a legal document. Patricia handled the details. The apartment would be sold, and we'd split the proceeds. Caroline's lawyer had advised her to take the settlement because fighting it would only cost her more in legal fees and potential spousal support. I get a modest monthly payment for the next 2 years, enough to supplement my teacher salary and build up some savings. I thought I'd feel something when it was finalized. Relief, sadness, anger, something, but mostly I just felt tired. The story should probably end there, with me moving on and rebuilding my life. But there was one more twist I didn't see coming. About a month after the divorce was finalized, I got a Facebook message from someone named Tracy Hendricks. I didn't recognize the name, but when I opened it, my stomach dropped. "Hi, you don't know me, but I'm James Hendricks's wife. I thought you should know what's been going on." Wife James was married, I read on. I found out about James and Caroline's affair a few weeks ago. I'd suspected for a while but didn't have proof until I saw the text you sent to Caroline's friends. One of them is my cousin, and she forwarded it to me thinking I should know. I confronted James, and he admitted everything. We're getting divorced too now, but here's something I think you'll find interesting. Caroline is pregnant. My blood ran cold. Pregnant. Tracy continued. James swears it's not his. He says they always use protection. He thinks it's yours and that she was trying to baby trap you to avoid the divorce. I don't know if that's true, but I thought you deserved to know since she apparently hasn't told you. I'm sorry you're going through this. No one deserves what they did to us." I stared at the message, my mind reeling. Caroline was pregnant. We did sex a handful of times in the weeks before I left, during her Save the Marriage performance. It was possible. But why wouldn't she have told me? Unless she had been trying to trap me, and then I'd filed for divorce before she could use it as leverage. I didn't know what to do with this information. The divorce was final. I owed Caroline nothing. But if she was pregnant with my child, that changed things. Not our relationship, but my responsibilities. I decided to reach out, but not directly. I had Patricia send a message to Caroline's lawyer. "My client has been informed that Ms. Mitchell may be pregnant. If this is true and the child is my client's, we need to discuss custody arrangements and child support. Please advise." The response came back within hours. Caroline was indeed pregnant, about 8 weeks along. She'd been planning to tell me after the divorce was final. A paternity test would be administered after the birth. I felt numb, a child. I was going to be a father, with a woman I'd grown to despise. The next few months were complicated. Caroline and I communicated only through lawyers about the pregnancy. She sent medical updates, ultrasound photos, things I needed to know but delivered without any personal touch. I sent money for medical expenses beyond what her insurance covered. It was mechanical, transactional. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she and James had broken up. Apparently, he'd been furious when he found out about the pregnancy and accused her of trying to trap both of them. His wife had left him and taken their 2 kids. Caroline had lost most of her friends over the affair scandal. She'd been forced to leave her job because the situation with James had created a hostile work environment. Part of me felt bad for her, a very small part, but mostly I felt that she'd made her choices and these were the consequences. When the baby was born, a girl, I was there at the hospital, not as Caroline's partner, but as the potential father. The paternity test was done immediately, and 3 days later it was confirmed. I was the biological father. Looking down at that tiny person, my daughter, I felt a surge of emotion I wasn't prepared for. Love, fierce and immediate, protectiveness, wonder, and underneath it all, sadness that this child would grow up with divorced parents, that she'd never know a time when her mother and father were together. Caroline and I worked out a custody arrangement. Given that she was breastfeeding our daughter, we named her Lily. The one thing we agreed on would live primarily with Caroline for the first year, and I'd have regular visitation. After that, we'd move to a more equal split. It's been 2 years now since everything fell apart. 2 years since I skipped that anniversary dinner and set all of this in motion. Lily is the light of my life. I have her 3 days a week, and those are my favorite days. She's smart and funny and has the best laugh. When I look at her, I don't see Caroline or me. I just see her, this amazing little person. Caroline and I are civil now for Lily's sake. We don't talk about the past. We talk about nap schedules and pediatrician appointments and whether Lily is eating enough vegetables. It's fine, it works. I heard she's dating someone new, some guy from her new job. I hope he makes her happy. I really do. Not for her sake, but for Lily's. A happy mom is better for my daughter. As for me, I'm doing okay. I'm back in therapy, working through the betrayal and the trust issues it left me with. I've been on a few dates, nothing serious yet. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. But I'm not the broken, invisible person I was 2 years ago. I've rebuilt myself, and this time I made sure the foundation was solid. I think about that night sometimes, the anniversary dinner I skipped. If I'd gone, if I'd tried to make it work, how much longer would Caroline have strung me along? How much more of my life would I have wasted being invisible in my own marriage? That panic call Caroline made when I didn't show up, she'd said it changed everything, and she was right, just not in the way she thought. She thought it would wake me up and bring me back in line. Instead, it woke me up to how little I meant to her. It was the first step in my realizing that I deserved better than scraps of attention from someone who saw me as a convenience rather than a partner. The real change came when I found that burner phone, when I saw, in black and white, exactly how little she valued me, when I realized that the woman I'd loved didn't exist anymore, if she ever really had. People ask if I regret how I handled it, the dramatic reveal, the text to her friends, the calculated way I planned my exit. Sometimes I do. It was vindictive, and I'm not proud of that side of myself. But mostly I don't regret it. Caroline played games with my life, my emotions, my future. She was willing to manipulate and lie to get what she wanted. I just made sure she didn't win. The real revenge wasn't the dramatic divorce or the public humiliation. It was rebuilding my life into something better than what I had with her. It was becoming a father to an incredible little girl. It was learning to value myself enough to never accept being invisible again. I teach my students about resilience, about how literature is full of characters who face impossible situations and come out transformed. I used to think I was teaching them abstract concepts. Now I know I was preparing myself for my own transformation. These days when I come home to my apartment, a smaller place than the one I shared with Caroline, but it's mine, I feel peace. When I pick up Lily and she throws her arms around my neck, I feel joy. When I look in the mirror, I see someone who survived betrayal and came out stronger. Caroline wanted to change everything with that panic call, wanted to reel me back in and keep me under her control while she planned her exit. Instead, she gave me the push I needed to see clearly, to value myself, to fight for the life I deserved. So yeah, I skipped our anniversary, and I'd do it again, because that night was the beginning of the end of my old life and the start of something real. People spend so much time being afraid of endings, afraid of divorce, of being alone, of starting over. I was terrified too, but sometimes endings are necessary. Sometimes you have to let something die to make room for new growth. My marriage to Caroline is over and I mourned it, but I don't miss it. I don't miss being invisible. I don't miss begging for attention. I don't miss feeling like I was always one wrong move away from being too much, too needy, too present. Now I'm building a life where I'm seen, where I matter, where my presence is valued. It's a smaller life in some ways, just me and Lily and a close circle of friends and family, but it's real, it's honest, it's mine. And that's worth more than all the anniversary dinners in the world. I still think about James sometimes, wonder what happened to him. His marriage ended too, collateral damage from his and Caroline's affair. I don't feel sorry for him, he made his choices, but I also don't hate him. He was just another person making selfish decisions without thinking about the consequences. The funny thing is, if Caroline had just been honest with me, if she'd come to me months earlier and said she was unhappy and wanted out, I would have been hurt, but I would have understood. We could have ended things civilly, split our assets fairly, moved on with our lives. Instead, she chose deception. She chose to have her cake and eat it too, to keep me around for financial and social stability while pursuing her affair. And in the end, she lost everything: her marriage, her affair, her job, her friends, her reputation. I'm not glad she's suffering. I'm not sitting here gloating over her misfortune, but I am glad that actions have consequences, that people can't just use and manipulate others without it catching up to them eventually. The last time I saw Caroline, when I picked up Lily, she looked tired, older. There was a sadness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. For a moment, I wondered if she regretted it all, if she wished she could go back and make different choices. But then Lily reached for me, and Caroline's expression hardened slightly, and I realized she probably still blamed me somehow, still saw herself as the victim of my unreasonable reaction rather than the architect of her own downfall. And that's fine. She can rewrite history in her head however she needs to in order to live with herself. I know the truth. The people who matter know the truth. That's enough. I've learned a lot about myself through this whole ordeal. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can handle betrayal and heartbreak and still come out the other side. I learned that I have worth beyond what someone else assigns to me. I learned that being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel invisible. Most importantly, I learned to trust my instincts. For weeks, I felt something was wrong, and I let Caroline convince me I was being paranoid, clingy, unreasonable. I doubted myself instead of listening to that voice that was screaming that something wasn't right. Never again. Now when something feels off, I pay attention. I don't gaslight myself. I don't make excuses for other people's bad behavior. I trust my gut. It's made me a better teacher too. I can spot when my students are struggling, not just academically but emotionally. I can see when they're being bullied or excluded or going through something at home. I'm more present, more aware, more empathetic. Because I know what it's like to be invisible. I know what it's like to be screaming for help while everyone around you acts like everything's fine. I never want anyone to feel the way I felt in those final months of my marriage. Lily will be 3 soon. We're planning a small party, just close family and a few of her little friends from daycare. Caroline and I will both be there, playing nice for our daughter's sake. It'll be fine. We've gotten good at the co-parenting dance. Sometimes I wonder what I'll tell Lily when she's older and asks about why her parents aren't together. I don't want to poison her against her mother, but I also don't want to lie. I guess I'll tell her that sometimes people grow apart, that sometimes relationships end, and that it's sad but it's also okay. That her mother and I both love her more than anything, even if we couldn't make our marriage work. The whole truth can wait until she's much older, if she ever needs to hear it at all. For now, she's happy and loved, and that's what matters. As for dating, I've dipped my toes back in. I went on a few dates last year, nothing that went anywhere. It's hard to trust again after what Caroline did. Hard to believe someone when they say they love you, when they say they're choosing you. There's always that voice in the back of my head wondering when the other shoe will drop. But I'm working on it. In therapy, we've been exploring why I stayed so long in a situation where I was clearly unhappy, why I kept making excuses for Caroline's behavior, why I blamed myself for needing basic affection and attention. Turns out I have some codependency issues stemming from my childhood. My dad worked a lot, was emotionally absent, and I learned early that love was something you had to earn through being useful and undemanding. No wonder I fell into a pattern with Caroline, where I did everything to maintain the household while asking for nothing in return emotionally. Understanding the pattern is the first step to breaking it. Now I'm learning what healthy relationships look like, what reasonable expectations are, how to communicate my needs without feeling like I'm being demanding, how to recognize red flags early instead of ignoring them. It's hard work, but it's worth it. The next relationship I have, if there is one, will be different, better, built on mutual respect and genuine affection, not just convenience and habit. I'm in no rush though. I'm content with my life as it is. I have my daughter, my job, my friends, my family. I have hobbies I'm rediscovering. I've started playing guitar again, something I gave up years ago because Caroline said it was too loud. I've joined a recreational basketball league. I'm reading for pleasure again, books I choose because they interest me, not because they'll make me seem intellectual or impressive. I'm learning who I am outside of being Caroline's husband, and I'm liking the person I'm discovering. Last week, one of my students asked me if I believed in happy endings. We just finished reading a particularly tragic novel, and she was frustrated by the lack of resolution. I thought about it for a moment, then said, I believe in true endings. Sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're sad, sometimes they're complicated. But the best endings are the ones where the characters have grown, where they've learned something, where they've become more fully themselves. That's more valuable than happiness. She seemed to think about that, then nodded slowly. So it's better to be real than to be happy. I think being real is the only way to be truly happy, I said. Fake happiness, happiness built on lies or delusion that doesn't last. But when you're honest about who you are and what you need, when you build a life that reflects your real values, that's when you find contentment. And contentment is better than happiness anyway. It lasts longer. I didn't tell her I was talking about myself as much as the book, but I think she understood anyway. High school kids are perceptive like that. That conversation has been on my mind a lot lately, because I am content now. Not every day is great. I have hard days, lonely days, days when I miss being part of a couple or days when the betrayal still stings. But overall, my life feels authentic in a way it didn't before. I'm not performing for anyone. I'm not trying to be smaller or quieter or less needy. I'm just existing as myself, and that's enough. That's what Caroline could never understand. She was always performing, always calculating, always trying to manage everyone's perception of her. Even her affair was partially about image. James was handsome and successful, and being with him made her feel desirable and exciting. She never learned to just be, to exist without an audience, to value substance over appearance. I feel sorry for her in a way. She blew up her entire life chasing excitement and validation from someone else, and in the end, she lost everything that actually mattered. Her marriage, her job, her friendships, her reputation. And for what? A few months of sneaking around with a man who belayed the second things got complicated. But again, those were her choices. She's living with the consequences, and I can't save her from them. I can only focus on my own life, my own growth, my own journey. And my daughter, always my daughter. Lily is with me this weekend. Right now, she's asleep in her room, clutching the stuffed rabbit she won't go anywhere without. In the morning, we'll make pancakes together. She'll stand on a stool at the counter and help me mix the batter, getting it everywhere, and it'll be perfect. This is my life now, quiet moments and small joys. Teaching during the week, co-parenting a toddler, slowly building toward a future I can't quite see yet, but trust will be good. It's not the life I planned when I married Caroline. It's better. Because it's real, because it's mine, because I'm not invisible anymore. And that anniversary dinner I skipped 2 years ago, best decision I ever made, not because it was easy or because I handled everything perfectly afterward, but because it was the moment I chose myself, the moment I said no more, the moment I started becoming the person I was always meant to be. So if you're reading this and you're in a relationship where you feel invisible, where you're giving everything and getting nothing back, where you're constantly making excuses for someone who doesn't value you, skip the anniversary dinner. Not literally maybe, but metaphorically. Choose yourself, value yourself, demand to be seen. It'll be hard, it'll hurt, you'll question yourself 1,000 times, but on the other side of that pain is a life where you matter, where you're present, where you're real. And that's worth everything.